Hello and welcome to the right side of the face demonstration video. Today I am going to do a follow along video, so you will be following along with these steps. Now, where you begin is based on whether you're right or left-handed. So if you are right-handed, you should start with the left video. So that way you have this side done, and then you'll hop over here and your hand is not smudging it. Whereas if you started on the right and you're right-handed and then you come to the left, when you're working on this side, you're gonna be smudging really badly over here. So for my lefties out there, you should start with this video so that you are not smudging through your work that you've already done. You'll receive 3 pictures and you are going to have one that is going to be outlined in red, and this one is showing you all of the edges where you need to fade out to white softly. So this image is showing you where to come in with your blending stump. Then we've got our second image, which has all of the blue outlines, and this image shows you where to come in to use your charcoal pencil to add solid black. So we're going to come in first with our blending stump and outline where the white is. Then we're gonna fill in with our charcoal pencil where the solid black is. And the next step is to just bridge the gap between the white all the way out to the black. You'll also receive a reference photo so that you can fold it and have it out next to you as you're working. So like I said, we are going to start with the white side, and that means that we need to fold it so that we can see exactly what we're working on. And like I said, we'll begin with our blending stump. So take a moment and see how much charcoal is in your blending stump so that you don't start out too dark. We want to start out with like a nice light to medium, maybe. Now, are we ready? We are going to come in with our blending stump now. So everybody follow along with me. Let's outline. We're outlining this shape right here. So have your reference photo for the white out next to you, and we are outlining this whole space. So it's kind of like a long stretched out little heart. Now I'm gonna very softly dust along that edge, and I'm just helping it to fade out to white really softly. Now let's continue doing that along this bottom edge of the nose, and here's like the dark patch under the eyes, and then around this little section. And now let's do the cheek, but I want you guys to watch this part first. See this little U-shaped line? We are going to start by making that line a little bit lower than you might think, and then we're gonna just so softly dust along the top of that line. We're going back and forth along it to help it to fade out. Now we are gonna continue into this little triangle above the lip. Let's surround that and soften. Let's surround the highlight on the chin. We'll surround it and soften. Let's go down to the neck, and this little edge is going to be where we bring in and soften all the way out to the white. Now, as far as the highlights in the hair go, we want these highlights to have a nice sharp, crisp outside edge. So we are not going to go through and border this because we're gonna do that work when we come in with the charcoal pencil. What we need to know for the hair as we move forward is that these are the spots that need to stay white. So we're going to have that image out while we're working, but now I'm going to switch into where I'm adding my solid black. So that means we're working with our charcoal pencil, and you are going to sharpen. If you haven't, it's okay, you can take a moment and sharpen. And we're going to use the right side of the pencil sharpener because it creates less of a tall point. That means more of the wood from the pencil can hold that lead in. Also notice the pace that I'm turning this is very slow. These leads inside of the charcoal are so fragile that it really is helpful to make your motions nice and slow. Now we are going to take our blue image, take that one out, and we're going to go through the top section of the bun and all the way through to add the solid spots, and then we're going to blend. All right, so let's go ahead and take our black charcoal pencil. We're gonna make this little half circle right up against the face. Let's add that little arch right above it. We're coming in on the other side of the bun, like where the bow is kind of spaced out. So we're gonna add that little line right up against the head, one more, and then the last one. Then we're gonna add this little curve. This little curve is a bit thicker, so we're gonna come in and add that. A little line, a little arch, arch, arch. So we're just adding these lines where we see them. Now let's hop down, and I want you to have your outlined white section out as well, so you can make sure that you don't accidentally go into any of those spaces that are supposed to be white. So we are going through and adding in our value to the hair below, and we're adding in these little black marks. We're just going through and bordering all of these little lines. Now, if you take a moment and look up at the board right now, you'll see that I'm at the point where the hair switches the direction that it curves in. So that means that I'm gonna fill in like a little black diamond, and then all of a sudden these lines are curving the other direction, and that's important to note. Now we're gonna border these curls. They're all kind of curving backwards like a backwards C shape. We're gonna also border where it touches the forehead with black, and kind of a thicker black line here. And then we've got a few little sections that are wrapping backwards into a dark patch, a couple little lines moving out. And now we're moving into the lines that are like leading right up to the hair next to the ear. So we're just adding these few little marks. And we are going to add in just this little black triangle, and this is bordering the ear. So make sure you don't go into the ear too much. We'll add that little line on the side, maybe a couple curls here. All right, now we are done with the black. Oh, I suppose we aren't. We haven't done the face, but let's do the hair first. All right, so we are gonna stick with just the hair. That way we can finish this, and then we can come in and work on the face, and we're not risking smudging anything. Now, while I'm working on the hair and bridging the gap between the white and black, I like to switch these. So I'm gonna move this back over so that I can see right where I'm supposed to be leaving it white. So I'm gonna go through and I'm gonna start blending in along the printed lines that you can see, but I'm making sure that anywhere where it's white on this reference photo, I am not using my blending stump there. Now, it's also helpful to have the reference photo of hair out, so it's kind of like looking between these two. So we want to make sure that we're not filling in any of the white. So I'm going to actually start by coming down here and kind of outlining this larger space that's white. And I'm just going to fill in the barely minimal little bits of medium tone right through here, and come in for this value in my darker section here, and adding in some of these lines. Now I've kind of got that white space outlined, so you can see it like kind of comes to a point right through here, and then turns directions right through here. So I am now going to swap this image with my reference photo, and that's gonna make this much easier as I go through. So I'm gonna come in now, and on the middle of the bow, I'm gonna add this little piece that's like stretching out. I'm gonna smooth out some of these lines, make it match this as much as I possibly can. And I am just trailing along and following along with my finger. And that's one of the biggest tips that I can give to you as you guys are working through this practice, is that following along with your finger is so important. And it's almost like when you're learning how to read and you're like just learning what the letters look like and like how they form words. So it's really hard to like think about all of that at once. Like you have your finger following along because you're learning so much, and it's hard to focus on everything. It is exactly the same with art. So we are following along with our finger because there's just too much to focus on, and we don't want to get lost in our image. So I am going through and just following along the best that I can with our little edges here. I'm going through and adding and making sure I'm not filling any spots that are supposed to be white. Now we are just working our way up to the edge of the head. So I'm kind of finishing up that top part of the bun. And now I'm gonna hop down and I'm starting to work on the head. So I'm really looking back and forth to make sure that these images are matching. And I'm just using my blending stump at this point. Now I'm getting to this part where it's a little bit darker, that spot where it changes colors, or directions in the curves of the curls. So I'm coming in and just kind of blending out and really paying attention to the fact that each of these curls has its own little value scale. So I may need to clean my blending stump off to help it to fade to get as light as it should. So I'm just going through and blending out each of these sections and then leaving kind of like a little highlight there down at the bottom. And then we are working into the curls that are right up against the face. So I'm adding in these little lines. And we are right up against the ear, so I'm just making sure I don't go into that space too far. We've got a little bit, and I'm just cleaning off my blending stump as I go so that I don't get too overwhelmed with dark. And we've got a little bit of that hair coming up through here. We've got some medium tone right behind this space. And then we've got these little curls kind of leading back towards the head. So most of what we're adding is already visible on the printout. It's just a matter of going over it with the correct values. So I am going through and just kind of filling in those bottom curls with that medium tone. And we've got like a little section of white, but then we want to kind of have the rest sort of filled through this space. All right, now we are going to hop into the face now. And let's go ahead and add those black values. So let's bring in our blue image. And you can see that the first step is to outline the lid. So I'm adding that black line right up against the lid, and I'm gonna add a tear duct by adding a little edging, like a little curve and then a line in front of it. Now we're also going to border the eyelid where it goes back into space. So I'm gonna border the outside of that eyelid, and then I'm gonna make this line thicker near where the corner of the eyebrow is. I'm also going to come in and add just that little nostril shape, which is like a tear drop. That's like the point is going towards the center of the nose. And then I'm also going to add the black to the side of the mouth here. Now, we are gonna come in to start bridging the gap. So what that means is let's work on our eye. I'm gonna replace this image and I'm gonna fold it right up against that right eye so that I can place this as close as I possibly can to my reference photo. Now, I'm gonna start by going along. Let's blend along that top line, and that's blending into the eye shape. We're gonna blend on the left inside corner of that eye. And then I'm just taking a line from my blending stump and kind of curving it around. Now I'm gonna clean my blending stump off, and then I'm gonna border that space that I just kind of outlined. And we're essentially bringing the highlight to the top kind of like right middle-ish side of the eyeball. All right, so we're just fading that out, and it is very much to do with cleaning off your blending stump. So that's an important step if you haven't tried it. And then we're gonna go behind the eye, and let's blend out the value behind the eyelid. Now we have a highlight in this space along the brow bone, so I just outlined the edge of that shadow and the eyebrow, and then I'm gonna leave that little patch as a light section in that space, and that's just where the light catches on the brow bone. And I'm bringing up the value to create the curve for the eyebrow bone, and then I'm gonna fade out into that value that I started right above it. Now I'm gonna bring this value out and around, and we only have white on the very outermost edge of the lid. So on that inner part of the eye, let's bring in a little bit of that gray so that the white is just on the very outermost edge and on the right-hand side primarily. We can also border on the inside once more if we need to get a sharper edge. Now I'm going to crisp up the waterline or the tear line at the bottom. So I'm just bringing my blending stump in and just like making this tighter and smaller and crisper. And then we want to end before we touch the side and come in with our blending stump and have that help to fade out underneath. Now, looking at mine, I probably went out too far on the side of the eye, and I can just come in and erase. Isn't that so nice? So you have the option to erase if you ever add more than you intended to. Now, looking at this image, I could probably add just like a touch of black to like the right side of the eye and maybe a little bit more on the inside by the tear duct. So I added 2 dots, just one at the either end of the eye to help me darken and to perfect as we reach these higher levels of accuracy. Now, the next step is to come in up against the nostril on the right side, and we're just making a very straight, crisp edge. We want to have a nice, solid line there. It does not need to be a soft edge. Then we're gonna come from that edge and fading out into that little U shape that we created when we were bringing in our outlines of the light areas. We are just filling all the way up to where that edge is. And I'm using the side of my blending stump to just kind of fill in all the way up to the edge of the face. Now I am going to come in and let's finish up the nose. So we are gonna border the nostril with some gray, and then I am going to bring in the black to add in just a small, the teeniest, tiniest line you can make that's like curving around it. So I'm perfecting the nostril, and I'm like making the hood that goes around the nostril. And then from that space, I'm gonna come in with a small amount of value leading out, but be careful not to fill in that triangle of white that's like just immediately to the right of the nose. Now, we have our nose, we've got our cheek. Let's come in for the lip. I'm gonna use just a small amount of my blending stump to create that top lip. And now I'm going to use some of that on my blending stump to make a little patch of value on the side of the mouth where it was curved. So let's add that little solid patch of value. And then I'm gonna use my blending stump to create a line under the lip, and I'm gonna help to fade that out. And then we're fading out to that little circle where it was a little bit lighter where we outlined it originally. And I'm just gonna bring that all around that circle highlight. And we're gonna bring our value out to that dark patch next to our lip. All right, now we wanna make sure that our image is matching our reference photo. So I am just gonna look back and forth now. And sometimes it's helpful if you're working with just a half to fold it at the same part to make sure that it is looking like it is matching. It looks like we might need a little bit more value on our lip, which I realize I did forget. So let's come in, take our pencil, we'll just add a smidge of value just right at the very edge here. And we're gonna bring that up. All right, now we'll continue underneath our jaw, and as you can see in our black outline, we are lining this edge, and we stop once we get to the curve of the jaw, and that is just like right where we'll stop. We are gonna come in with a little bit of value just right along here to help that have a nice transition. So let's go along that line. We're just gonna soften that up, and then we're gonna bring that value out and down. And then let's fade that out to a nice medium. Now our medium is gonna stretch, and it's gonna come from the jaw, and it kind of like continues at that same angle before it then turns back to be kind of like the angle of the back of the neck. So I'm just filling this in with a nice light tone. And then I'm gonna come back through and I'm gonna darken again. And I'm gonna go back over the top of this little corner here. I'm gonna darken it up so that we've got that dark corner right underneath the jaw. I'm gonna come in and I'm gonna darken this little line of the collarbones coming up. And I am also gonna give myself just like a nice border of that little cloak here. So I'm gonna blend that out towards the inside of the neck. Blend out our soft patch that we added. All right, now we are going to work on the cloak now. and the bottom portion of the hair. Now I've got a little bit of value left on my blending stump, so I'm just gonna come in and look for these two little lines and then these kind of like lines fading out right here. So I'm just coming in and adding like implied hair near the edge. I am gonna give myself a bit of a border along the back here, and I'm doing that because I don't really have enough on my blending stump to fill this. So I gave myself a little patch of value here. We want that edge to be nice and straight along the neck. And I'm gonna use that little bit of value that I just got on my blending stump to kind of like fill in that top edge right here. Now we're gonna just go along these lines. And for the center part right along here, we probably need it a little bit darker. So I can come in with my charcoal pencil and just add a very soft line. Be careful not to press hard because that will be a very difficult line to blend out. So you are welcome to come through and kind of just like add multiple lines together, add those lines very softly with your charcoal pencil. And I'm just coming through and adding the lines on top of the lines that I already see. So I'm just gonna come through, blend this out. So I'm just blending along the line to help it look like that fabric. Now, the last step is to blow away your dust. And you are going to go through and look at your reference photo to see if there is anything on this half of the face that you need to continue working on. Most likely there's gonna be details in the hair, maybe a couple things to come back on the face, like the facial features to work on. We will all have something that we can work on. So I want you to look back through and look at your reference photo compared to yours to see what you can continue working on to make yours even closer to the reference photo that we started with. All right, well, thank you guys so much for watching. You take your time in finishing this because what we just did together was definitely not enough time to finish this the way that I am anticipating. So make sure that you take your time finishing this up, and you are welcome to just replay this video if you need help with those steps once more. All right, thank you so much for watching.